Welcome to This Organized Life. If you're a mom, wife, or coffee lover seeking advice on how to reduce clutter and reclaim time, look no further than your host, Lori Palau, founder of Simply Be Organized and author of Hot Mess, a practical guide to getting organized. For a lot of people, clutter is their dirty little secret, but it doesn't have to be. Each week, we will share practical tips, chat with experts, and provide strategies on how to keep you organized. I hope that by sharing our stories, you feel a little less alone and more empowered to tackle the areas that are holding you back. So let's get started.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of This Organized Life podcast. I am your host, Lori Palau, and I am really excited to have you here. I know I say that every week, but this week, I really mean it because I have been dying to do an episode like we're going to do today. So you are in for a treat. But before we get started, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. If you're brand new to our show, make sure that you click the subscribe or follow button, whatever they're calling it. Also, in case you aren't aware, we are also on YouTube. So if you would like to watch our show and see our guests, you can head over to our YouTube channel, which is at Simply Be Organized. And follow us. Make sure that you're following us wherever you hang out. I'm on LinkedIn or on social media, obviously on Instagram and Facebook and all the places. So connect up with us because we like to hear what you're doing. So anyway, back to today's show. So I've been getting a lot of requests over the years about doing an episode on decluttering and divorce. Obviously, if you've been around me for a hot second, you know that I'm married to my husband for almost 24 years. So that specific area is not my wheelhouse, although I do have a lot of friends who have been through divorce and I've walked with them and talked them through that. But I personally don't have experience. And so I've been trying to find the right people to have on as a guest to talk about the process. There's so many layers of what that looks like in terms of the organization and the emotional and the physical. And it's something that I've not taken lightly. And so I've really been kind of researching behind the scenes for quite some time to find somebody that I felt would resonate really well with our audience. And I am confident that I found them. So today's guests, and I'm going to bring them out in a minute, are T.H Irwin and Jessica Klingbaum, and they are the ExExperts, which you're going to love them. If you like this show, I really think you're going to love them. They're funny, they're smart, they're best friends, and they're going to each tell you their stories, but they both went through divorces and had kind of like parallel stories, even though they each have their own, different situations like everybody else. And now they have a community online with a plethora of resources for women who have gone through this or are walking through this or are thinking about walking through this. And so I love what they're doing. I love the content that they're putting out there. They're funny. They also have a podcast, so we're going to promote that as well. But today we're going to just talk about their stories and some actionable tips for anybody that might be struggling with how to deal with decluttering and divorce. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome my guests for today's show, Jessica Klingbaum and T.H Irwin. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you so much for having us today. We're really excited about this.
I'm really excited. If you couldn't tell from my intro, and I know we were talking offline, this is something that I really feel passionately about and think it's so important for people to have resources that have walked through this. Like, it's great to have empathy and it's great to have strategies, but when you can resonate with somebody who has been in similar shoes, because obviously everybody's situation is somewhat different, there's just a level of just this empathy and a level of conviction that comes that I just don't think I can bring. And so I'm so happy to have you guys here. So can you each I'm sorry, go ahead, Jess.
No, I was just going to say, we totally agree with you. Our tagline is we've lived it, so we get it. The whole point of someone going through what could be like a really dark and scary and lonely experience, to know that there are resources out there coming from people who've walked that path and have like made it through to the other side is our whole point.
I love it. So, and I'm going to just kind of, for the people that aren't watching on YouTube, I'm just going to say, I'll just mention like who's talking when, so you guys know. So Jess, let's start with you. And why don't you just tell everybody who you are and a little bit about your story so we can kind of get a feel, and then we'll move over and let TH do it.
Sure. So obviously I'm one of the co-founders of ExExperts. I mean, my former career history is I was a network news producer for over 20 years. I spent about 9 years at CBS News and then a few other networks. And so I have a lot of media. That's my background. And TH and I met back in college because my first husband was TH's best friend in high school. So that was how she and I connected. And we got married within a month of each other. And we, like, our husbands were best friends and we were best friends, and we would go travel together and do all of the things together. And then we both found out 13 years down the line that our husbands had been having affairs and they were covering for each other. So they would go on like what they were.
No way. It's like
totally
like a Grace and Frankie up, but not gay.
You can't make this stuff up. They would go on guys. They would tell us that they were going on like a guy's trip. But really they'd be taking their girlfriends to the Four Seasons in Costa Rica.
So they were going on a guy's trip?
No.
But
Yeah, they were the only guys.
But
they would say they're going on like a guy's motorcycle riding trip. And I'd be like to my husband, I'd be like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like, have the best time. But he was really going away with his girlfriend. Yeah, exactly. So TH and I started our divorce. Obviously we found out at the exact same time. And so it was a huge realization of that. In many ways, we had been living parallel lives within our marriages, even though our relationships with our husband and our marriages were totally different. They are two totally different men. We are two totally different women. So what it looked like was actually not the same. We started going through our divorces at the exact same time. Mine ended up being very I don't want to say easy because divorce is devastating and it's never easy, but mine was fairly easy. It was very amicable despite the circumstances. And TH had a totally different divorce. We would say to each other all the time, oh my God, can you imagine if we were doing this alone? We were amongst the first of our friends. I was only 36. She was only 38. We had super young kids. We just didn't know anything about it. Both of our parents, all of our parents are still together. We didn't come from divorced homes. We didn't really know a lot of people who were divorced, and we would compare notes all the time. Like, oh my God, I was talking to my lawyer today about, child support long-term. Like, did you guys talk about this? And did you guys talk about this? And we were getting tips from each other all the time. And we would say, we have to figure out a way to do something to help everybody else who's going through divorce, who doesn't have their best friend going through it right now at the exact same time with them. Nobody wants to hear you talking about all of the details of your divorce. I always use the analogy of it's like when you have a brand new baby and your friends who don't have a brand new baby are like, how's the baby? And you're like, the baby's good, because that's really all they want to hear. But your other friend who has like a 7-week-old is like, how many ounces did they drink today? How many poopy diapers did you have? Like, are they colicky? And they want to know all of the details. That's what we were like going through our divorces. And we recognized that other people didn't want to hear all of everything in the weeds. So
I'm sorry. And I also want to say it's not, first of all, I love that analogy. It's great, but it's also, they didn't get it. And you know what, when you're walking through something, whatever it is, it could be a weight loss journey. It could be divorce. It could be whatever it is. When you want to talk to people that are understanding of what's happening, because I'm sure, there's so much emotion that's happening. To be able to talk to somebody and them not really get what you're walking through is you don't even want to tell them, because
right. And some people's responses would be like, oh, he's such an idiot, or, he's such a bad guy. And and I'm like, that's not what I'm saying in this conversation. We didn't need extra people to bash on our exes. We needed to figure out a positive way to get through the place we were, to be able to make it to the other side and continue to raise our families and have everybody be in a happy and healthy environment. So years later, we went for it and launched ExExperts.
I love it. I love it. So TH, give us a little bit of all of it. You can go through your story because I'm curious to hear how it's, different than Jess's.
So just so everybody knows, and this is for any kind of situation that shifts your life, what you see outside the door is not the same as what goes on inside the door. Jessica didn't even know the half of what was going on in my life because I wasn't accepting of what was going on in my life. So I wasn't able to even communicate it because I wasn't willing to take it in, the reality of it. It was a bad marriage. I mean, it was just a bad marriage. We weren't even really friends. We had terrible communication. In my mind, it was emotionally abusive. But so I like really wanted to get out, and my son had just been born and I really wanted out, but I just didn't know what to do. And I had gone to lawyers and I had gone to a therapist who said basically to me, if you don't like his behavior, then leave. If you don't, then don't complain and stay. And I was like, And so the big thing that I think stops a lot of people is fear of the unknown. And what ExExperts does is clear the fear. We've got you. We got your back. Trust your gut. Listen to your friends. You do what you want to do with that information, but don't not take the information in. Don't be offended by it. What, you're offending me? They're trying to help you. And now looking back, I see so many people had said things to me, and I asked them even today, I'm like, what did I say? And my answer was, I don't want to hear it, because I couldn't hear it. So anyway, when I found out, I got a phone call that, from his girlfriend, and I told her she saved my life that day, because she did. She was my get out of jail free ticket. I was out. I was hallelujah. I didn't have to make a bad choice. He was a bad guy. He cheated. I'm out. I don't have to do anything else. So I just grabbed it and ran, except that I had an 8, 6, and 4-year-old. And so as much as I wanted to run for the border, I've got 3 kids that needed me to stay right in that pain point longer. So I couldn't have been happier. I literally felt like someone took like the chain from around my neck off and I could breathe. And so you look at Jessica and I, and we're traveling, we're doing all these trips together as couples, and everything looks la-di-da, except I was literally suffocating. And Jessica was in denial of what was going on. And so supporting one another, even though divorces are different in terms of the legal aspects of it, the feelings are the same. I mean, the way you feel like, are you kidding me right now? You did all of this? Like, who are you? Looking at your ex and kind of like unraveling the mess that slowly built up. So that's my story. It was my ticket to freedom. I feel that way every day. January 24th is actually the anniversary of my official divorce, which took 4 years for me to get to. And I look at that as my New Year's Day. That is my best day ever, other than the day that she called me. And of course, my children. But for me, like, my best days are the day I got the call and the day it was done. Because then I could just move on. Then I don't have to worry about things. So Jessica and I have also really been great friends to one another. We know to listen to each other. We have tremendous respect for one another and each other's opinions, which makes our friendship really special because, as you know, and everybody listening, you have friends for different purposes, right? I want to go out. I want to drink. I don't want to think about anybody. I'm calling her, and him, right? I want to sit and watch a movie and watch Terms of Endearment and cry my brains out. I'm calling her, or I'm not calling anyone. Like, you pick who your people are. Jessica and I have kind of been all of those people for each other. And so that's why we're in business together, because you're also really not supposed to work with your best friends or family. but we each bring valuable skills and information and perspectives that are different but important to this project. And if we can make somebody else's life better and easier, even more so than for us, because there was no real internet, there certainly weren't divorce coaches. Like you all don't even know the half of the stuff that's out there for you, but we are aggregating it all for you so that you can kind of figure your way around it. And my professional career, I have a master's degree. I was in experiential marketing. I was also working for large media companies. I worked for USA Today after I worked for a large media company in New Jersey, where I started an events division. So I created a new revenue stream for the company. I don't know how he saw that that's something that I could do, but I loved it. I had autonomy. I had creative license. I had great resources like free advertising. And then ultimately my events went across the country, which was awesome. It was awesome. And then it got to a transition time well before COVID. And I'm like, Jessica, I am looking online right now, and there is so much crap out there about divorce. I would be scared. There's identity theft and hacking, and every lawyer for $3.99. I mean, by the way, everybody, there is no divorce that's $399 or less. I'm just telling you, just the filing fees are not going to cost you that. But we just felt like there is just too much clutter clinic. And we need to help people navigate this in a way that's not going to break their bank, that's going to give them opportunity and help them like move forward. Otherwise you get stuck. So that's me. That's why we started this. That's our friendship.
I love it. I love everything about it. And like, really, what a gift that you guys have each other. And I think I'm really hopeful that if there are people out there that are listening, that feeling like they're either going through this or that there isn't a way out, like that they're listening to this going, oh my gosh, thank you, because I love that. And I talk about it all the time when it comes to clutter and organization. Is a lot of times we just need a roadmap. We just need to know what to do. We might want to do something. We may have like, this is my goal. I want to do this. And I talk about this even just on a benign level with like goal setting is, we say, this is what we want to do. We want to lose weight. We want to work out. We want to run a marathon. We want to yell at our kids lost, whatever it is. But we don't sit down and either have the action steps or we don't have the tools in our toolbox to know how to get us there. And so, with divorce, obviously, and I even mentioned to you offline, like I would love to even do a series and we could pick apart different aspects of it because I just see so much opportunity to just really like support and serve other women that are walking through this in each individual area. But for today, I kind of want to just take like a broad stroke view and just look at the logistical part of it, right? Because when you're going through this divorce, obviously everyone's different. Some people have kids, whether you have kids or are they littles, are they middles, are they bigs, whatever your situation is. Right. The process of separating households is going to involve a level of organization and getting rid of things. And it's hard. And again, some people like you, TH, you were like celebratory because this was your golden ticket. And Jess, you may have been in a period of mourning or denial or whatever. So everyone's going to be approaching it differently. And I guess my question is, can you walk through some of the experiences that you've had when it came to the physical stuff that you had to separate? And maybe you guys can each speak to like, did you leave your house? Did he leave? Did you do the whole like whatever they call it, where the kids stay and whatever it's called. So like, what did you guys do and how did that work?
For me, I too had gotten a phone call one evening. And when I woke up he and I had a very brief conversation that night. And when I woke up the next morning, I was like, so I'm divorcing you. So you're going to need to move out. And he was kind of like, what are you talking about? Because he hadn't even admitted anything and he had been like denying it. And he was like trying to tell me that whoever was on the phone was someone else. And I basically was like, it doesn't even matter who was on the phone because I don't believe you. We'd been together at that point for like 20 years. And I was just like, I just don't believe you. And the fact that I don't believe you is enough for me. So, and I think it did kind of like reinforce things that I had been in denial about. Like it kind of all came to be very clear. So I was basically like, we're done. You're going to need to move out. Our kids were almost 2 and 4 years old. But this is a conversation that I'd had with TH at one point when we were talking a little bit about in one of our episodes about organizing after divorce. I am not a very like nostalgic, sentimental person. Give me a birthday card. It's like going in the garbage after I read it. Like the stuff that my kids made, it's like everything's being tossed. I call TH a sentimental stockpiler. I am not a sentimental stockpiler. So it really was not difficult for me. I mean, we were at a point in an apartment. We had owned several apartments. At that moment, we were in a rental because we had sold our last apartment and we were considering like a new neighborhood in the city. And I was like, why don't we rent first and see if we like that neighborhood? So there was like no discussion about who gets the home. I was telling him he needed to move out of that apartment, but frankly, our lease was up in like 2 months. So we were both going to be moving anyway. I kind of took whatever I wanted. Listen, part of the reason why my relationship with my ex-husband, I've been married twice and I've had 2 very amicable divorces. And my first husband, the reason that our relationship is so good is because from that first night of the phone call and the next morning of me telling him that I was leaving him, he has been incredibly remorseful, incredibly apologetic, incredibly sorry. And it's, I believe it, and it's sincere. And so I could have taken anything I wanted. There wasn't an argument about who's getting the couch or who's getting this. It was like anything that I wanted to take out of that apartment, I was taking with me. And anything that I didn't want to take that I wanted to replace, he basically replaced for me. I was like, I want a new couch from Mitchell Gold in this custom leather fabric. He's like, done. The separating of the objects was not difficult for me at all. And it was just a lot of purging. Like I said, I mean, my kids were so little, they weren't even making school projects yet. But you know what I mean? Like I didn't even have a lot of that stuff. So for me, I don't think it was as challenging of a situation as it was probably for TH. Also because I don't keep things anyway. I throw it all out. So one day my kids are going to come back and start looking around and wondering where all their stuff is from when they're little. And like, yeah, no.
Well, we'll talk on a separate level on another time, because I do a lot of the work I do has to do with personality types and the relationship with clutter. So we can do a whole thing. The weird thing on a side note is like, I'm a total clutterer. Like I'm looking around, like I have piles everywhere, but it's like, I kind of know what's in the piles. So it's not like all of my surfaces are clean and I have a space for everything, because I don't, but I don't keep stuff that I'm like, I'm never going to use that. Well, that's good. And I'm sure that made the process easier.
Yes.
For you.
Yes.
You know, TH, why don't you, as the sentimental stockpiler and having kids that were more aware of what was going on and having them watch that, like that to me is adding another layer in addition to what your own emotional holds were. So I'd love to hear your story on that.
So I basically got my ducks in a row after I got my phone call. And as far as my living arrangements, we had sold our home, which I really didn't want to sell. But like I said, I was in an emotionally abusive marriage where what I said really didn't matter. And I didn't have the wherewithal. You wouldn't even know who I am. Honestly, I don't even know who she was. Those 4 years to not say, I'm not moving out of my house, but I didn't. And he's like, we're going to buy a piece of land and build this big house. I don't
This is before she got the phone call.
Sorry. Before I got the phone call, maybe like a year before the phone call, we sold our home. We bought a property to build a ridiculous home that I also did not want. I like a homey home. And my parents were generous enough, because they lived in Florida most of the time, to give us my childhood home, which was in the next town, for us to live in with our kids for free. Just pay the expenses. So it took all this time for the home to get ready to be built. The day I got the phone call was 4 days before they were breaking ground. So
Well,
thank
that's
God for
divine
that.
intervention.
That whole day, the phone call, everything was divine intervention. Someone planted a seed to get her to call me, and all the spirits up there were working together on Team TH that day.
It all happens the way it's supposed to.
Yeah. So I had to find a place for us to live back in our town because my kids were registered in that town. So as far as transitioning, I basically told him that I got the phone call and I'm never living with you again. And that was the end of it. I put all his clothing out on the front lawn in bags, but it was my parents' home. It wasn't his home. He had no stake to anything in that
I was
place.
just going to say it wasn't a joy place.
But in his mind, he thinks differently. But regardless, there wasn't an option. So I had to find a new home for us in our town, which I did very quickly, and get my kids settled. So like I said before, like I was ready to run and go out and be free. But wait, I got 3 kids. I got to get them back into town. have to make sure they're okay. We can do a whole other episode on how we told our kids, but I told them with him, but I led the conversation. All of a sudden, like strong TH came out, like take control TH was back. And that was it. And then I created a home for me and my kids in this new home in town. And we lived there for 13 years. So, but before that, we had lived in that other home for 10 years, maybe. And I love stuff. I love all their projects. I'm the one who bought those mega size folders to put your kids' mega handprints in, and the big like foldo. Like I was the one.
I know exactly
customer.
I know exactly what
I had them all. Lori, I was so organized, but with too much stuff for every year. I had every grade. I had all their report cards. I had their swim results from camp. I had for each of my kids, the stork on the front lawn holding a diaper that says,
she saved them.
I saved all of them.
For all of our listeners out there who are younger than Jess, TH, and I, who are all around the same age, I believe. You probably don't know
it wasn't a real stork, by the way.
No, it wasn't. It was like a wooden stork thing that people put on the lawn. That was like, that was the announcement. So now you have like Card My Yard and all these other things.
Right. That was like anyone driving by would know you just had an announcement.
If you had a baby in the mid to late 90s or early 2000s, you know about the stork.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
So I don't have the stork because I think they took it back, or I would have had it. But I had the diaper that he was holding with my kids' names, their weight, the time they were born, the day they were born. So now fast forward 13 years later, we had bought this home that I had initially rented, and now it's time for me to transition. But everything from my very first house basically went into storage and then just moved to the new house. So I have, before my daughter was born, and also I was a big photo album girl. Everything's got a photo album because back in the day, everybody who also is super young, we actually took a picture that we printed out. We drove past a Walgreens yesterday. It still says 1 hour photo on the outside lit up.
And you got the dupes, and you got the duplicates. You got the duplicate packs.
That's right.
And the negatives. I saved all the negatives.
Oh my God.
Anyway, long and short is going through all that stuff was very difficult because I also had a lot of storage in that house. So I would never see it. Unlike Jessica, like knowing what stuff is where. That stuff just like existed somewhere. I had people storing.
Because I live in an apartment.
Right. No, I know. I'm saying, but I had my friends storing their furniture, like a dining room table in my basement, and I didn't see it. So imagine all the, memories. So when I was going through this stuff, the hardest part that I kept getting caught up with were photos. And Jessica was like, I'm like, oh my God, I found this one. I found that one. I'm sending it to my high school friends, my college friends, my abroad friend, like everybody's getting pictures. And Jessica's like, you have to put the pictures away because you're going to spend way too much time going through pictures. So pictures were definitely a challenge for me. The other thing is my grandmother had given me all of her china, her silver. My mother gave me her stuff. I could have fed 200 people with settings of all different kinds. So I had to go through all that, gave away anything that wasn't worth anything. There's like a thrift store here, but you pick the charity that the proceeds go to. So that was important to me. So I brought all that stuff there. And for some reason, I can't get rid of the dress, Lori. I got the dress. I love the dress. I love the dress.
I had to ask about the dress.
And
so that was one of my questions is especially if you, not that I think I have two girls and I'm married to my husband. And I don't think even though my dress was pretty classic and timeless, and I actually would wear it again today. It wasn't like something that was very trendy. But what do you do with that? Especially if you have a girl, like, do you hold on to it? Because
I'm still holding it. I don't know what for. I think I almost just want my girls to try it on. It's been in the box, by the way, since 1995.
Yeah.
Just so we're like managing expectations.
And I have friends who've been through divorce and have gotten rid of it. And I have friends who have gotten divorced and got rid of it. Jess, what about you?
Yeah. So I'm not a sentimental stockpiler. I am a person who, when I was getting married, and this I think goes to my whole nature of like not being super nostalgic about things. Like I remember when I was getting married, thinking, what a waste of money to buy a dress. And by the way, again, this was back in 1995 where an expensive dress was maybe like $2,000. Do you know what I mean? Like nothing like it is today. And I remember even back then being like, I literally cannot fathom or stomach the idea of like buying a dress for thousands of dollars that I'm literally never going to wear again. So my mother did have her wedding dress and we had made an appointment at Bergdorf's to go wedding dress shopping. And my mother brought hers and I tried it on and it fit. And I was like, done. And we were with a friend of my mother's, a very fashionable guy, a very I didn't wear it, but I was like, it's totally fine. And my mother's friend who was with us, who's like in the fashion industry, was like, it's awful. It looks like a nightgown. There's no shape to it. He was like, that is not fabulous at all. Like, you're not wearing that. And he ended up helping me choose what I ended up wearing. So then after my wedding, several years later, my parents, I grew up in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. My parents had friends who had a daughter that was getting married and they didn't have a lot of money. And my mother said to me, would you be open to lending your dress to her? That was the first time I thought to myself, oh, well, but do I want to save it in case I have a daughter someday or whatever? And I was like, you know what? I had the opportunity to wear my mother's dress and it fit. And like at the end of the day, I didn't even end up wearing it. So do I actually think that 35 years from now, a kid of mine might wear my dress? Probably not. Like it's so much more of a mitzvah for me to let somebody else wear it who wouldn't have been able to get something that great. So I lent it to her. And then after I lent it to her, my mother came back to me a couple of years later. There was somebody else. Like, could she loan it to that person? So my dress has been worn by three other brides.
You were like a Rent the Runway for.
I was. So my
dress was worn. My dress was worn by three other brides, and I think the last person that wore it, I think like we maybe have just gave it to her. Like at that point, I was never gonna do anything else with it. So I think that had I still had my dress, had there not been the times that other people had worn them, I for sure, I think would have gotten rid of it because I probably would have like shown it to my daughter at some point, and then I probably would have. Because now there are places where you can either sell your dress or you can put it online for other people to be able to borrow who can't afford dresses. Like I would have done something like that. So, but I will say in terms of things like I still have my wedding album because I think that
I kept mine too.
My kids, all right. I think that like my kids love looking at that kind of stuff. They love looking at photo albums of mine and my husband and my ex-husbands from college. Because we're like, we're 18 in those pictures. Like my kids love that.
It's part of your history. And again, everybody's story is going to be different. And if somebody was in a really, really unhealthy, I mean, I know you were TH, but if somebody was in like some terribly toxic that they just don't ever want to look at it, I understand.
Yes.
But in most, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but I was just going to say, it's still a part of your story.
Yes,
And it's
it
a
is.
part of your kids.
Yes.
But I got to tell you, I had my kids, I was showing them pictures. And so,
This is so interesting.
My oldest daughter, I said to her, I'm like, what do you want me to do with all these pictures of me and your dad? She goes, they're not my memories. I just want a picture of us together as a family. Those pictures of you and dad are not my memories. So do whatever you want with them.
Wow.
And
I
then
have
my
chills.
that was actually really amazing and
Mhm.
something people should think about because they are your memories. Your children weren't even alive. And then my middle daughter, my younger daughter, she doesn't like middle daughter, younger daughter is like me. She like wants to see it all. But then she also didn't keep any of it. And then my son was only 4 and he said, I don't even remember you guys together. They mean nothing to me.
Mhm.
So what I did with the photos was I kept our album. I kept the recap montage because that also had our family in it, which is non-existent mostly now. But their great grandparents and great aunts and uncles. And so I felt like I wanted to keep that. And then I kept maybe like 20 pictures of me and their dad in case they ever wanted it. Like who knows what could happen. So that's all put away nicely in a box. And I literally threw away all of the other pictures of us from all of our trips, everything, because it meant nothing to me. And it was just literally taking up space. And another thing that I'd have to move that again means nothing to me now.
It also takes up a like emotional, psychological headspace. Like even just having it in a
100%.
box in your house.
I was gonna,
100%.
I was going to say that, Jessica, and that is such a great point because, and I say this with everything, your stuff, whether you're going through divorce or not, if you bought a pair of shoes that were a lot of money and they kill your feet, you've worn them once and they kill your feet, you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to wear them again. But you have this guilt because you're like, I can't get rid of them. I just spent a fortune on them and they sit in your closet, whether you're realizing it or not, every time that is mental weighing you down. That is mental baggage. And this is a whole other layer of this. And just like you said, having, not only is it the physical space it's taking up, but even if you have the house with the garage or the storage room or whatever, and you're not living in an apartment, it's there. And it's there in the back of your mind. And so this is this is gold for people. I absolutely love it.
I also think that my kids, like, I'm glad that I talked to them about it and shared, like they saw all their school stuff and they got a good chuckle out of it. And then we trashed it. But I just wanted to make sure that they were cool with it, as far as the pictures were concerned. But I have a story for you about.
All right, let's take a quick break. Let's take a quick break right here. And then we'll come back and I want to hear your story. So sit tight. All right. So tell us your story.
So when my ex-husband and I first bought our home, we went to New York City. He is definitely fancier than me, which I need to say, because this isn't typical me. We went to a design building and custom made a couch. Okay. A ridiculous amount of money. And we literally had no money, just saying, but spent whatever penny on this stupid couch. Okay. So the couch lived in our home. Then it went to storage. Then it moved into my new home with my kids in the basement. Heavy too. Okay. Now it's time to move on with my life, move out of this house, move out of the town. Nobody wants the couch, but the couch costs so much money.
30 years ago.
I know, but there's like a thing that Lori's going to explain to us in a minute. Like why? So now I'm moving. I can't even give it away for free. Free. Come and get it. They don't even want to take the guys and rent the truck to come and get it. I had to pay my town to pick it up from my curb after I paid the people to remove it from my basement. And I had a very long driveway because I had a detached garage all the way up my driveway. I had to pay them. And then I had to pay the garbage guys in my town to trash it. So my advice looking back is if you're transitioning out of a place, and like Jessica said, her ex gave her whatever she wanted, only take stuff you love. Don't take stuff because it costs a lot of money, because then it's going to sit in your house and you're going to hate it every single time you look at it, especially if you're going through a divorce and you don't want like that negative. That's why I was in the basement. I never looked at it. It was never going where I'm living. And then I had to pay someone to take the stupid couch away. So
I'm sorry, but that is
explain this
such a
to
great
Lori.
story. Okay.
It's so
All right.
ridiculous.
Well, Jess, you wanted to say something. You look like you
Yeah,
want to say-
which is
I
like,
will.
look, I think whether you're married or divorced, right? There's a point in every marriage, probably earlier on, where you're kind of just starting your lives together, and so it's like, oh my God, like your mother gives you this side table, and your mother-in-law gives you this armchair over
That
here.
was my
and you
house,
have
by the way.
right? That's everybody's
Everybody
houses
else's
in the beginning.
crap.
No, you start your life that way, and you're married in your early married life. Most people, right? You have it's like a mishmash of your childhood bedroom,
Somebody's
furniture.
dining room table.
That's right.
whatever.
That's right. And then as you move through your marriage together, even if you're going to different locations, this was my personal story, but I feel like it relates to a lot of people. We would move different apartments, and we would bring these things with us. One of them was like a kitchen table that my parents had 25 years ago, and the whole thing was like, right, think about all the money we're saving. I will tell anybody out there, when you're getting divorced, that I know if you're the one who's choosing to get a new home, or even if you're choosing to stay in the home, really think about the financial investment versus like the emotional impact of how you're going to feel every day coming back into your home with this mishmash of assorted pieces that you have maybe never even really liked. And now you lived with them, with your spouse for a significant period of time. And maybe some of those items were like your ex-in-laws. I finally, after my, several years down the line after my divorce, when I had bought a new apartment for myself, and I made the investment to have an interior designer, and I literally got rid of all of the things. I got rid of the old rugs that my parents had given us. I got rid of, the old piano that his parents had given me. I had gotten rid of the couch that he bought me after the divorce. And I was like, this is my opportunity to have a home that represents and reflects me. That every day that I walk into this apartment, I'm going to be like, this is who I am. I love where I live. And I just want to say, we all, when you're getting divorced, are like, feel like you're strapped financially, right? Because that's where the money is going. And it's very hard to justify, like, I'm going to buy new furniture right now. And so at that moment may not be the time, but all I'm saying is, like, if you don't, prioritize that in your life, you are going to stay in a rut psychologically, because you're still going to be living in that place that's going to be bringing you bad memories and bad juju. That's it.
I could not have said that better. And I absolutely, seriously, like, that is gold right there, because I say that with so many things. And especially if those memories are unhealthy, that just keeps you there. That your stuff can emotionally weigh you down.
Yes.
And to kind of come full circle to talk about, to unpack and do like a quick little therapy session, TH, when I talk about clutter to anybody, divorce, whatever, just in general, I look at clutter in three main areas to just really keep it on a big broad stroke view. Physical clutter, that's stuff that you see, and that could be dishes in the sink, the laundry, the clothes, whatever. You have your what I call calendar clutter, which is being overscheduled, not having the whole time management pieces. I'm busy because either I don't spend the time to do it or not using my time wisely. But then we also have emotional clutter, and that emotional clutter is that guilt and that fear, and that's the sentimental, that's your sentimental Sally right there, where you are, my kid made this for me, I need to hold on to it, whether it reminds me of them, or I will be a bad mom if I get rid of it. See, I'm more like Jess, where I was like, okay, this is great. And I kept a few things, and my kids learned early on how to prioritize, like, we're going to keep the self-portrait, but the scribble on the paper is going in the trash. Like, I showed them that not everything needs to be kept. But there are people that every piece of paper, every scrap, every morsel has a level of sentiment to it. And to really break through that emotional clutter is hard for a lot of people. And that has to do with it could do with a variety of things. It could do with just your innate personality. I mean, and you guys each have multiple kids. I have multiple kids. They're different. They're different personalities.
Totally.
They're raised in the same household. So that emotional clutter for you with the couch specifically, and the fact that it spent a lot of money, even though the irony is it's a couch that you didn't want from a guy you're not married to, like that you don't even like, you know, there's all of these negative things, but there's something in our brain that go, I really shouldn't be getting rid of this. It's either irresponsible of me or wasteful, or, you know, we tell ourselves all of these narratives that hold us back from making the decisions logically. And so we give ourselves all of these justifications that are fake. And I tell people all the time, most people, and this is a generational thing, and I feel I like to believe that, you know, there's a lot, you know, less as our generation and the generations behind us that don't prioritize stuff the way the baby boomers did and the Depression era people did, where they're able to part with things easier. But you're taught, we were still taught that you hold on to those things. You were still 100%. Taught that you pass that down. The fact that you said that, you know, you could have, you know, outfitted a dinner for 200 people
easily,
you know, because there was an obligation, I'm air quoting for anybody that's to hold on to these, that this had value. And
now it's my responsibility. Like
I call it passing the clutter torch. And I call that passing
my mother will say to me, why are you getting rid of it? You know, that's worth whatever. I'm like, well, then why don't you take it back? I don't want it. You're just like shoving it off on me.
Yeah. So I think it's once we can, and like a lot of work that I do is helping just naming it. Not to label you or but once you can articulate it, once you can name the problem, the root of the problem, then you can start to solve it. Then you can start to free yourself of it. Then you can release yourself. And again, how freaking annoying is you're holding on, you're tugging this big, ridiculous couch around, and now you have to pay people
to get rid of it.
Yes.
I would have burned it in my backyard if I wouldn't have gotten in trouble for that.
Yes. No,
honestly, I mean, it's really, I think
it's so ironic that that's how that ended, though. It's like, that just is so like ridiculous.
I was like looking outside of myself at myself, like,
you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Basically.
But what I tell people is this, and hopefully we use this as like a springboard, as a launch pad. And it's to be intentional about when we bring stuff into our lives, enjoy it, let it serve a purpose for a season. And then when it's time to let it go, because it is not serving you, right? You're not using it, wearing it, loving it, whatever it is, get rid of it, because the money's been spent. The space could be used for something else. And like your wedding dress, somebody else is benefiting from it. So
I know,
but it's a
I don't
work
know what to do about the wedding dress, but I will tell you that
you can donate
I feel like I know I'm not ready for that though. That's like the last thing.
Okay.
But going through my house, I had my parents' like gorgeous mahogany dining room table and their crystal chandelier, none of which I wanted. I'm building a home with my boyfriend now, and it's all new and beautiful. And I will just tell anybody out there, like, there's definitely a fear and a sense of responsibility in keeping these things. But once you get rid of it, it is like a hallelujah. You just feel like, oh my God, I want to like shout from the rooftop. I don't have the couch. I don't have 500 pictures. I don't have 20 years of school reports. Like that stuff does totally weigh you down. And maybe you're using it as like a safety blanket or something to protect you. But I think I was always afraid I would forget. That's why I didn't want to throw the stuff away.
I also just want to say one thing. So I know you want to say something too. So don't forget what you're going to say, but I really want to say, you know how when you got the phone call, the best day of your life phone call, it mentally gave you permission to then leave that marriage.
Yeah.
Even though you really wanted to go, there was something holding you back. And that trigger gave you that final permission.
Yep.
That is how a lot of people feel, whether they're going through divorce or not. People feel with their stuff is sometimes they just need permission from your mom to say, you don't want that chandelier. It's okay.
Right.
You don't want that, because there is a lot of times, whether it's actual guilt or fake guilt that we just put on ourselves, that someone's going to be upset or hurt or angry or whatever. And that is, once you feel like you have permission to free yourself from it, that is, sometimes that's what people need to have the strength to move forward, just like you did with your marriage.
Yeah.
So Jess,
Totally. All I was going to say is I feel like, again, I think that there are a lot of people who going through divorce who are kind of like, now's not necessarily the time for me to spend money on new things like decor and whatever. And I just want to remind you that there are people like TH and I who are getting rid of that stuff, and it's being donated to different, Salvation Army or Housing Works or
even Facebook
or
Marketplace now.
Facebook Marketplace, or even secondhand furniture stores. So it's like, even if you feel like you don't necessarily have the budget, like go thrift shopping and just replace what you have with something else. It's someone else's ex-mother-in-law's table, but at least it doesn't have the psychological
and that you like. Yeah,
that's right.
And we're big fans of home goods.
You don't hate something that you don't hate more than what you already have. You're better off.
Well, and one other last thing is, even if it's not big things, like Jessica and I are also all about, like, if you're on a tight budget, then get yourself an awesome candle. Invest in a new mattress, get gorgeous towels, get a yummy pillowcase and sheets for yourself, get a gorgeous pair of pajamas or slippers. Like, you have to put your head down at night and be able to sleep. So making your space as comfortable as possible, even if you're sleeping on the old bed frame, beautify it in a way that works for you so that you feel like, I love this place. I love where I am.
That is such awesome advice. I love all this. Okay. Well, I could talk to you guys for hours, and I definitely think we're going to, I know we're going to have you back. We're going to do talking about some other aspects of, divorce and organization, because I think there's so many different areas that we can talk about. So much. But tell our listeners right now where they can find you, the best place to connect. And then we're going to take one more quick break and put you back in the hot seat. But before we go to our last break, where can they find more?
I mean, our sort of home base, we're a multimedia platform, but our home base is the website. It's www.experts.com. It's ExExperts spelled out. We're everywhere. We have social media, Instagram, Facebook. It's at ExExperts, again, spelled out. Our podcast is on every podcast platform. It's called Divorce, Etc. And so the idea is, like, if you like listening to podcasts, the information's there. If you prefer reading articles, every podcast episode has the full transcript and an accompanying article to go along with it. So someone who doesn't want to listen can read it. We have made it so easy for anyone who needs this information and these resources. You can get it any way that you want it. So again, I would say you can connect with us through the website, through social media, download the podcast. It's covering all of the topics. It's what you don't know that you don't know. It's us asking questions to experts that you don't know that you should be asking. And so this is the way that you're getting the information.
I love it.
And I would just say that Jessica and I are pretty transparent in every podcast and therefore article and transcript. So even if we're interviewing an expert like Lori, we are definitely chiming in. Like, our podcasts are kind of like what just happened here, except
it's our stories.
Roles. And then Jessica and I also do ones that are just us, air quotes, but that's what those are called, where we just talk about stuff like, God,
we did a whole one about
what
a whole one about what we did with the rings.
Right. What we did with our rings and moving and the stuff. And so we recap our own stories and also kind of remember some of our stories, and we have very different perspectives. So, it's a broad range of information that you're going to get from us and our experts.
I love it. And of course, for all of our listeners that our longtime listeners know, we will link everything, because like you, we want to make it easy and accessible for people to consume this content in whatever way they want. So we will have links to all things the ExExperts in our show notes, podcast page, all everywhere.
Thank you.
We're going to take our last quick final break, and then we're going to wrap things up with our final questions. So sit tight. Okay, ladies, this has been awesome.
So much fun.
So much fun. I think the biggest issue is the fact that it's going to be like, oh my God, who's trying to talk over who? Because I feel like I'm like, no. It's more me. I tend to, I'll go back and listen to episodes. I'm like, oh, I was so excited with that guest. And you could see I like
do
jumped
the same
in.
thing.
Well, anyway, ladies, I always ask our guests a few questions. We here at This Organized Life and at the whole Simply Be Organized brand are all about trying to inspire people, help them, empower them, but with a level of authenticity. And I know that you guys are, are cut from a similar cloth. So tell our listeners, I'll let each one of you answer. Is there a book that you've had that you've read that, and it could be a personal book, it could be a self-help book, like it could be a fun fiction book, it doesn't matter, that is something that you either come back to or that you refer to people? We always just love to have resources for people and get a little bit of insight into kind of like what's your go-to. So Jess, I'll start with you.
Okay. I would say, a book, like sort of a self-help-ish book that I loved was You're a Badass by Jen Sincero.
Yep.
I just think that she talks like us. I feel like we could be friends. Like I really love her style. But there was a book that I read fairly recently called The Arrangement. I think the author was Sarah Dunn. Okay. And it was about a couple who was like sort of kind of struggling in their marriage and then decided to have an arrangement where they could have an open marriage for 6 months. And I'll tell you, like, as someone who's single and out on the dating scene, I see a lot of guys' profiles out there that talk about ethical non-monogamy and, how they're poly and they are looking for additional partners, which I find it's not for me, but like kudos to them. So I thought that book was funny and ironic and a very quick, light read.
All right. Awesome. I will link to those. And TH, what about you?
So this is going to show the clear difference between me and Jessica.
TH reads all the time.
I pretend I read. I have instead of self-help section, I have a shelf help of like gorgeous bookends that don't get opened. But one that did is called Atomic Habits by James Clear.
I've read it.
And he really helped me because I'm like a big Post-it girl. And by the way, you want to talk about sentimental stockpiling? I had all these pads from being a mom. I don't know if you could see.
I could
like
see, yeah.
From the desk of the mom of. So I couldn't throw them away. And I was like, screw it. I'm going to use them for my notes for work. So they're here and I use it for my notes for work. Anyway.
Well, at least you're using them. Well, at least you're using
but I'm a big like Post-it everywhere, which means I'm totally disorganized. So the one thing that
this is my work notebook,
which you can't say out loud. The one thing I would say that I learned from him was like managing your expectations of the amount of actual tasks you're going to get done in a day. I'm a big list girl and I can never check anything off my list because my list is too long. So you start with one task over like 3 days, and then it's 2 tasks over like 5 days. And then you don't get to add any more tasks until those 2 are completed. Like nothing else is going to get done until you check those off. And like how to build a list, a to-do list that's going to make you feel like I got a lot done today. I checked off my list, as opposed to, I don't know what the hell I did today. I didn't check anything off my list because I was busy doing things that I didn't have to be doing. So I can justify and procrastinate, and I have a total monkey brain. So he has really helped me stay on track. And the other big thing is I have one spiral notebook. They're pretty, but I have one, and that's where all my notes go. No more Post-its. And that's where everything is, so that I don't have a physical. I was
going to say that reduces all your physical clutter.
Less mess than I have now.
I love it. Hey, baby steps. I love it. We will link to Atomic Habits. I've read it. It's a great book. Okay. And our last questions in pretty lighthearted. And again, you guys can answer it any way you want. But in this season of your life, where do you feel the most organized and where do you feel like a bit of a hot mess?
Physically or
it could
mentally?
It could be whatever, however you want.
Well, I would
like to say
that sometimes I can speak for Jessica, that we feel like we are a bit of a mess with ExExperts behind the scenes, because there's so much that we want to do and so many things that we're excited about. And it's hard for us to reel each other in and be like, but wait, focus on the things that follow your goal. Your goal is this. So I almost feel like, Jess, we need a sign that reminds us of what our goal is when we get off track. So that's my feeling. But most organized, I would say, in my physical space, which also leads to mental, is I am someone who has to work out every day in some way, shape, or form. And so that is a part of my everyday. And my gym is perfectly organized. I know where everything is. It's clean. It's like the best space in my house. It's the sacred space in my house.
That's awesome. I love it.
And so that also translates mentally, because that's, endorphins are good every day. So that's like my most organized place.
I love it. All right, Jess, you're up.
I happen to be in a period of transition right now where I kind of feel like I'm sort of a disorganized hot mess in every area of my life. And I'm not like just trying to be hard on myself. Like that is legit how I feel.
We've had all seasons like that. We all have seasons like that.
I'm in one. Like I'm living in a temporary rental that I'm not happy in. I have a new apartment that's being renovated. I should be able to be moving in shortly. I think by the time this airs, I will have been in the new apartment. So I have like everything going on with a gut renovation, like architects, contractors, interior designers, walkthroughs all the time. ExExperts, like TH said, there's a lot on our plate and a lot of stuff that we want to do. And so we're constantly like in a million directions. And I have like fallen off. I also, surprisingly for me, for a while, I've also been like a daily exerciser, and it really was like keeping me sane. And I like fell off the wagon because of the COVID surge. And I had been really struggling to get back into it. And I feel like mentally, like I'm all over the place. But prior to that, I would say for the last like year and a half, it really was kind of the exercise part of me, which was keeping me feeling like I was productive every day. So even if I didn't finish my to-do list, I had worked out, I had done something for myself that made me feel good and like was going towards a long-term goal. But right now, I think everything, I can't even, like, even as I'm looking around, I'm like starting to have heart palpitations. Nothing else in my life is organized right now.
Well, we're going to take it. I'm going to give you an outsider perspective. And first of all, I want to thank you both for your honesty and transparency, because that is what we're all about here. When we feel like we're out of control and we're spiraling, I think we all just want to, like, I've had days where I'm just like, what am I even doing with my business and my life? And I should just pack it all up. You guys are doing amazing things. And I am so in awe of the community that you've built, the business you built, the resilience that you've had in your lives as moms, in your careers. And from the out, you might feel like you're spiraling right now, but from where I sit, you guys are thriving. So for anybody out there that feels like they are coming undone, just know that there's somebody else out there that's looking at you going, like, applauding at all the accomplishments that you have. So I just want to say that.
Thank you so much. That really means a lot. I appreciate it. We appreciate it.
Yes.
Yes.
So anyway, on that Love Fest note, I just want to thank you guys both again for coming on our show, for telling our stories. We're definitely going to have you back. We're going to figure out some different aspects. So if you are somebody that's listening to this episode or watching this episode and this is resonating with you and you have questions, obviously go to the ExExperts website, learn more about them, but write into us. Let us know. You could send us an email at info@simplybeorganized.com or shoot us a DM and let us know some specific areas, whether it has to do with finances, whether it has to do with other logistics, whether it has to do with shared spaces and kids and moving back and forth. There's so many layers that we can unpack on the show. And we'd love to be able to bring you the content that is what you want to hear. So please, please let us know. That's it. I'm Lori Plow. Until next week for another episode of This Organized Life. Peace out. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, please spread the love by sharing it with your friends. And if this is your first time tuning in, make sure to click the subscribe button wherever you are listening so that you never miss an episode. And while you're there, please leave us a review so other people know that our show is worth a listen. Head on over to YouTube and make sure that you follow us there as well. We record interviews, videos, and conversations with all of our guests. And again, if you want to learn more about our product offerings, feel free to visit us at simplybeorganized.com where you can connect with me.